Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most kind. Peace and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and his companions and all those who follow him. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hussein Shifar. I am a trustee of the East London Mosque Trust. I'm a community organizer and the chair of the school's governing body, which are based in this center. Welcome to all of you for this evening joining us. I know that as a community organizer, when you're organizing events like this, you worry about two things people using as an excuse not to turn up, which is snow and rain. I've never had to think about heat in this country, but it's one of those things you worry about nowadays. Would people turn up when it's too much heat? So thank you to all of you. Good thing is we do have aircon in here, and so it feels the temperature is a lot better. Alhamdulillah. Without any further ado, I'd like to ask Imam Muhammad Mahmoud, who is the senior Imam of the East London Mosque, to recite from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولله ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء قدير إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد فاستجاب لهم ربهم أني لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى بعضكم من بعض فالذين هاجروا وأخرجوا من ديارهم وأوذوا في سبيلي وقاتلوا وقتلوا لأكفرن عنهم سيئاتهم ولأدخلنهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ثوابا من عند الله والله عنده حسن الثواب لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد لكن الذين اتقوا ربهم لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها نزلا من عند الله وما عند الله خير للأبرار وإن من أهل الكتاب لمن يؤمن بالله وما أنزل إليكم وما أنزل إليهم خاشعين لله لا يشترون بآيات الله ثمنا قليلا أولئك لهم أجرهم عند ربهم إن الله سريع الحساب يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Control of the heavens and the earth belongs to Allah. Allah has power over everything. There truly are signs in the creation of the heavens and earth, and in the alternation of night and day for those with understanding, who remember Allah standing, sitting, and lying down, who reflect on the creation of the heavens and earth. Our Lord, you have not created all this without purpose. You are far above that, so protect us from the torment of the fire. Our Lord, you will truly humiliate those you commit to the fire. The evildoers have no one to help them. Our Lord, we have heard someone calling us to faith. Believe in your Lord, and we have believed. Our Lord, forgive us our sins, wipe out our bad deeds, and grant that we join the righteous when we die. Our Lord, bestow upon all that you have promised us through your messengers. Do not humiliate us on the day of resurrection. You never break your promise. Their Lord has answered them, I will not allow the deeds of any one of you to be lost, whether you are male or female. Each is like the other in reward. I will certainly wipe out the bad deeds of those who have emigrated and were driven out of their homes, who suffered harm for my cause, who fought and were killed. I will certainly admit them to gardens graced with flowing streams as a reward from Allah. The best reward is with Allah. O Prophet, do not be deceived by the disbelievers. Do not be deceived by the disbelievers trading to those from the land. This is only a brief enjoyment, after which hellfire will be their home, a miserable abode. But those who are mindful of their Lord will have gardens graced with flowing streams, where they will stay as a reward from their Lord. And what Allah has is best for those who are truly good. Some of the people of the book believe in Allah, in what has been sent down to you and in what has been sent down to them, humbling themselves before Allah. They would never sell Allah's revelation for a small price. These people will have their rewards with their Lord. Allah is swift in reckoning. O you who have believed, be steadfast, even more steadfast than others. Be ready, always be mindful of Allah so that you may prosper.
Thank you very much, Jazakallah khair, Imam Muhammad Mahmood, for these words of reminder from the Holy Quran. So, to begin, just before we call up some of the guests for this evening, we have a short video to show you, which is a video showing the names of the 50 newly identified victims buried yesterday in Srebrenica, and clips from the memorial.
Share Šaban Adamović, 1953.
Sabrija Adić, 1940.
Šaban Avdić, 1960.
Munib Bektić, 1951.
Džemil Dedić, 1962.
Mevlid Dudić, 1970.
Mustafa Đananović, 1960.
Kiran Đozić, 1957.
Nezir Efendić, 1941.
Mevludin Ferhatović, 1972.
Salim Gabelić, 1968.
Sad Vojčinović, 1965.
Salko Hadžić, 1969.
Hajrudin Halilović, 1968.
Salko Halilović, 1954.
Almir Halilović, 1975.
Esnaf Hasanović, 1969.
Samir Hasanović, 1975.
Samir Hasanović, 1975.
Hamdija Hasić, 1965.
Sead Hasić, 1963.
Saad Hukić, 1974.
Said Hukić, 1976.
Hajdin Hukić, 1942.
Mevludin Husić, 1972.
Mustafa Husić, 1974.
Smajo Ibrahimović, 1938.
Mehmed Ibrahimović, 1941.
Nesib Ibrahimović, 1958.
Sakib Jahić, 1972.
Mehmed Alija Jugović, 1960.
Nermin Kaljević, 1977.
Smail Karić, 1937.
Husein Krđić, 1936.
Edhem Merđić, 1949.
Mustafa Mešanović, 1961.
Ramiz Mujčinović, 1955.
Suad Mujić, 1966.
Elvir Muminović, 1978.
Salim Mustafić, 1979.
Moriz Mustafić, 1966.
Smajo Nukić, 1951.
Senad Osmanović, 1975.
Ismail Pilav, 1952.
Rahmo Rahmić, 1952.
Mensur Rahmić, 1975.
Adil Selimović, 1936.
Salčin Sinarović, 1938.
Vahid Smajlović, 1978.
Senahi Čečić, 1956.
Just one of the many names that are on there is quite telling when you look at the year of their birth, 1975, 1976, barely in their teens, 19, 20 years old. This is why it's so important for us. This idea of never forget is not a slogan, but it's something that has to come from the heart. and hopefully it is implemented in the way that we deal with our problems in our societies today, so that we say never forget means we would never allow something like that to happen on our doorstep, whether it be in Europe or anywhere else, ever again. To reflect on this and reflect on this evening's theme of Srebrenica and not to forget, I would like to ask our panelists, our guests this evening. First of all, a couple of them are going to be on Zoom joining us. First of all, Nishad Yakovic, if you can just join, come to the stage. Thank you very much. Imam Sedin Sahman. We're going to swiftly kind of move on to the next part, which is again another video, which is via Zoom. We're going to be joined by Dr. Melika Arifodojic, who's going to be speaking on understanding the Srebrenica genocide, reflections on the past, present, and future. Just a very small introduction to Dr. Melika. She's an expert associate in the Riyasat of the Islamic Community of Bosnia and Herzegovina, focusing on cooperation with state institutions and political organizations. She's a senior advisor in the Secretariat of the Interreligious Council of Bosnia-Herzegovina. If I could just ask the technicians to get her on Zoom. Thank you.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone can hear me. Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone again from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. All praise belong to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful. I would like to thank East London Mosque and the London Muslim Center for the invitation to this event, and of course for their continuous effort. Just to start my video, here I am. So I would like to thank East London Mosque and the London Muslim Center for the invitation to this event, and of course for their continuous effort every year for more than 20 years to commemorate the genocide in Srebrenica. For this occasion, I would like to make a brief overview to remind us about the situation or political and historical circumstances in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the region before and during the war, as there are for sure relevance in today's moment and political situation, not only in Bosnia, but in the world in general. Yugoslavia, as arranged after the Second World War during the communist regime under Tito, consisted of 6 republics and 2 autonomous provinces that made up its federation. It took some 40 years and the death of Tito in the early 90s for the nationalist rhetoric of Slobodan Milosevic to start happening in form of fueling speeches about the creation of Great Serbia, where usually he uttered threats to other Balkan nations. Milosevic was not alone in his vision of creating the Greater Serbia, which included parts of Croatia, Kosovo, whole Kosovo, as well as larger parts, if not all, of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Of course, he was not acting alone. He was helped and supported by the intellectual elite of Serbian nationalists, whose headquarters was in the famous French street number 7 in Belgrade. So the war was already raging in parts of Croatia when a representative of Bosnian Serbs, a convicted war criminal, later convicted war criminal Radovan Karadzic, uttered threats from behind the speaker of the parliament when in Bosnia and Herzegovina, when he said that the path of independence would lead Bosnia and Herzegovina to hell and the Muslim people to extinction, because they had nothing to defend themselves with. These are his specific words. So he knew exactly why he was saying that, as while he was speaking, the heavy armament of the Yugoslav army was installed at strategic points throughout all Bosnia and Herzegovina, preparing for overtaking Bosnia at any cost. Here it should be explained that even during the communist regime, the Yugoslav army was under the mentorship of Belgrade, of course. So traditionally, most of the generals were from Serbia, with the command center being in Belgrade. So although all the republics and all the citizens equally allocated money and participated for the financing the Yugoslav army, Serbia very easily managed to take control of the army and the entire arsenal. So immediately at the beginning of the war, Bosnian Serb army with Yugoslav army weapons and paramilitary forces from Serbia committed horrendous atrocities against civilians, including forced deportation, torture, mass murder, detention camps, and systematic sexual violence with rape camps in cities of Bosnia, Foča, Prijedor, and Kozarac, which proved to be their general military strategy, accepted military strategy. Later, Bosnian Croats joined and also backed up from the leaders and intellectual elites from Croatia, and with a joint deal with Serbia to divide the country between themselves. During the war, the United Nations declared 6 protected areas for the aim of protecting civilians in Bosnia in order to obtain the protected status. These zones needed to be completely demilitarized, and people were urged and ordered to hand over all weapons they had. These zones were supposed to be safe haven for civilians to provide them protection, but in fact, they turned to be prisons for these people. Bosnian Serbs blocked the access to them and continuously, especially in Sarajevo and Gorazde, hindered and even attacked convoys of humanitarian aid and medical aid. As a result of these actions, the situation in the zones was very difficult. Shortage of food, medical means, and even electricity and water, with Serb forces at the same time striking and bombing unselectively, very often civilian targets. I myself don't remember a day without sound of grenades in Sarajevo, but I remember that one day in July, I think it was 22nd of July, a record of 3,777 grenades were fired at the city at that day, the sole day. One of the UN safe zones was also Srebrenica, a town that lies near the border with Serbia, with Drina River being a natural border between the two countries. Serbian forces started an invasion of Srebrenica in 6 July 1995, which was thoroughly planned action under the command of General Mladic, uniting military and paramilitary forces from both Bosnia and Serbia. The UN couldn't give shelter to hundreds of men and boys who were seeking help in the UN base in Srebrenica, and the Dutch battalion proved to be completely incapable of protecting civilians in the safety zone. In the town, there were around 50,000 disarmed people because it was proclaimed a protected zone. They had to hand over the weapon. So these 50,000 disarmed people that could not give any resistance, from 11th July and for the next couple of days, the worst atrocity in Europe after the Second World War happened. Serbian forces systematically selected from women more than 8,000 Muslim men. Elders and boys took into places of detention in and around Srebrenica, where they were tortured, beaten, and executed. They were usually taken blindfolded from their detentions directly to their burial places, then lined up and executed. In order to hide the mass execution, the bodies from these mass graves were then once or twice or even 3 times reburied. And this is the reason why the remains of most victims are not completed yet in Srebrenica. International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia investigated and ruled the mass execution in Srebrenica as a genocide, which was executed under the command of Ratko Mladic. In total, more than 700 years was ruled for genocide and other crimes in Srebrenica before the international courts and courts in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia and Serbia. 47 persons are judged on the ground of being decision makers in the chain of command, giving orders and making executions. Courts pronounced 5 life imprisonment sentences, including the sentence for General Mladic. Today, the genocide in Srebrenica is denied and revised. Bosnian Serb and historians, politicians, and intellectuals, also from Serbia, create the same collective narrative and ambience as it was the case before the war. In Bosnia, we still feel that this narrative is not abating, and there is a realistic fear that the crimes that were committed not so long ago can be repeated, because the forces and the ideas that primarily led them are very active. It is an unacceptable fact that after 27 years, things that are completely clear and declared before the courts are being discussed. At the same time, war criminal Ratko Mladic is celebrated as a national hero. So what we have here, the history is being distorted by genocide deniers in the country where it was committed. Although the situation improved with the imposed law on genocide denial, it is by no means an indicator that the fact of genocide is acknowledged. In their intention to relativize the ethnic cleansing and genocide in Bosnia, Republika Srpska and Serbia often find support in Russia. In 2015, Russia vetoed a UN resolution condemning the Srebrenica massacre. While this resolution was supported by European and US governments, it was condemned by Serbia, which called the resolution anti-Serb, and having Russia on their side for this matter. So the final words, in 1995, the international community failed to provide adequate protection for the people of Srebrenica. The UN battalion from the Netherlands was there when everything was happening and did nothing to prevent it. The government of the Netherlands offered their deepest apology for that failure that was said by the Minister of Defense this year in Potocari the other day. Bosniaks waited a long time for the Dutch apology and welcomed it. We will see how long it will take for Serbian apology, but their present narrative, combined with backing of Russia, does not seem very promising at this moment. I would like to close with underlining the importance of talking about Srebrenica, reminding on historical facts and court decisions, inviting victims that survived to testify, investing in research, organizing exhibition, roundtables, etc. And again, thanks to the organizer for being a part of this community that remembers Srebrenica, and to the UK as a country for being so devoted to mark this reprehensible day in recent human history. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Melika. I think despite her being on Zoom, we are able to take a couple of questions related to her topic of understanding Srebrenica. Are there any questions that, if we can just have the mic, and I know that she's able to see on screen as well, if you're able to. I've got a question here. Can I get in the other hand? I've got another question there. So we'll take those 2 questions for now. Yeah, that's fine.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Malika. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. My question to you, in terms of the going forward in future and the present context, how do you see this, since this genocide and also the convicted those who have been convicted by the International Criminal Court. What are the general feelings there in terms of their atrocities and how the Muslim community, especially youth, how they remember these things and how they reflect on it? And do you see they're still on the same page that we are thinking of, or they are thinking that we are going forward as a European country? Thank you.
Were you able to get that?
I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
I'm afraid I couldn't hear the question properly.
So, if I could understand it correctly, the brother is asking, in terms of what's happened since we've had some people held to account by the International Criminal Court, what do you think in terms of looking at the future, what can the young people today take from what's happened so far and the feelings on the ground?
You mean lessons that are learned from the past that young people could implement in future?
Yes.
Well, I have to say that youth in Bosnia and Herzegovina, unfortunately, is poisoned, especially youth in Republika Srpska, by a narrative where genocide is denied and where the atrocities and war criminals are considered as national heroes. And this is the problem for our future. Now, the genocide, the professor and researcher of genocide studies, Gregory Stanton, he, in studying genocide and its 10 stages, the last being the denial, he said that if the society is in that last stage of denial, it is very likely that the genocide would be repeated. In Bosnia's case, the theorists of genocide not only established these 10 stages, but they discovered 11th stage, which is triumphalism and celebrating the genocide. This is unfortunate uniqueness of Srebrenica genocide. In such environment and in such social circumstances, it's very hard to talk about the future, unfortunately. The only proper thing and action that seems to work, I would say, right now are the sanctions. After 26 years, the High Representative imposed the law on genocide denial. That happened, I think, last year or the beginning of the year. And it seemed that 80% of genocide denying in public space decreased. It doesn't mean the ideas and that the genocide is recognized, no. But what tells us is that the sanctions of this kind works, and that the next step that the High Representative promised, so to say, about unifying textbooks, history textbooks, because we have different history taught now in Bosnia, would be the next step, and hopefully step to better and brighter future. So we will see how he will go with that. It's very hard to believe that that will happen, but we pray to God that it will happen and it will bear results.
Okay, we're going to have to end this bit here because we've got shortage of time. Dr. Malika, again, thank you very much for taking your time out to join us this evening and sharing your thoughts on understanding Srebrenica better. Again, thank you very much, and hope to see you again in our events in the future. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you. Alaikum assalam.
Right. Okay, so the next speaker we have is Right Honourable Alistair Burt, who sent a video. He is the Minister of State for the Middle East at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and Minister of State at the Department of International Development between 2017 and 2019. He has been a Member of Parliament for over 30 years and is the UK's Commissioner on the International Commission on Missing Persons. So if we can just have that video, please. Thank you.
Member of the House of Commons and also a Minister in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. But now I'm the United Kingdom's Commissioner on the International Commission on Missing Persons, a body set up by treaty after the conflict in the Balkans by the Daytona Accords and situated in The Hague. The ICMP exists to recognise that there is no closure for the families of victims if they cannot be identified and found. But the ICMP also knows that if you can find out how someone died, there is a chance of finding out who may have perpetrated a crime against them. And its patient work in the years after Srebrenica helped to identify some 7,000 of those victims and help with that information to bring to trial and to convict of genocide those who had perpetrated such an appalling act. Srebrenica remains a scar on the soul of humanity, a crime committed in plain sight in the midst of a community that said never again. To visit the memorial at Srebrenica is to recognise the sheer misery and depth of human violence and the consequences. Those who have kept that memory alive recognise that never again means nothing unless there is a way of bringing to justice those who have committed such crimes, to know that of whatever rank they may be, those who may have killed and murdered in the cause of conflict will be brought to justice. So I thank those who keep the memory of Srebrenica alive, that its call to arms over the years is a call not to support memory, but also to ask for justice to be done for those who need it. So thank you for the opportunity to say these words on the anniversary.
Okay, thank you very much to Right Honourable Alistair Burt for sending that video. And as an East London Mosque Trust who organise this event every year, we will continue to endeavour to make sure that this event is not forgotten and commemorated. I would like to now ask for Sister Munadia Aftab, who is going to read us a message from the Grand Mufti of Bosnia-Herzegovina to the East London Mosque and London Muslim Centre. And I believe all of you have a copy of the message in front of you as well.
Dear brothers and sisters, friends and supporters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all. I would like to thank the East London Mosque and London Muslim Centre for its long-standing support for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and especially raising awareness on the Srebrenica genocide for over 20 years. I had the pleasure of visiting your great centre in my first term as the Grand Mufti of Bosnia and Herzegovina during my visit, and I was happy to open the Srebrenica Week at the London Muslim Centre, spearheaded a number of events and exhibitions to mark the 20th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide. May God accept the noble effort of everyone involved in helping Bosnia and Herzegovina, and special appreciation to Dr. Abdullah Folik for coordinating the campaign and being a good friend of Bosnia. 27 years have passed since the Serbian army and police committed genocide in our beloved Srebrenica. We feel the consequences of that evil in many ways even today. Acknowledging the genocide in Srebrenica and respecting the judgments of international courts should have been an important step on the way to an honest confrontation with the past. However, despite all court verdicts and confirmed facts of what has transpired in Srebrenica, we witnessed the human dishonor of not only those who deny the genocide, but also even celebrate it. The absence of sincere repentance calls into question the moral healing of individuals and the community. Unfortunately, many of the criminals are still at large and do not have an iota of remorse. It is not uncommon for the promoters of this evil to be institutionally rewarded. Now we see much more clearly that the evil of the Srebrenica genocide cannot be easily overcome, and that its poison will continue to circulate in these areas for a long time. Admittedly, what turned out to be a partially curative were the sanctions such as the punishment stipulated by the new law on the prohibition of denial of genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. These, again, had to be imposed by the High Representative instead of being adopted in our parliament as an expected civilizing gesture. In any case, we must not falter in pursuing the evil criminals, but we have to be stronger in this pursuit. Evil must be fought. It must be pointed out. It must be condemned and despised. Otherwise, it will triumph, to proving itself good and useful. Not only that, it will try to multiply where it finds suitable soil. The fact that at this moment crimes are happening near us in Ukraine and in other parts of the world only reinforces the need to raise awareness among the public and to remind them that not so long ago in Srebrenica, which was a UN-protected zone, the Serbian army and police carried out just in a few days the crime of genocide against civilians. We are grateful to countries that firmly stand by the victims and do not allow Srebrenica to be forgotten, as well as many people from all around the world. We consider it a civilized obligation to go public with a clear stance against hatred which has no place in our societies. The mistakes of history must remain exactly where they happened, in the past. Under no circumstances should they be provoked or passively given room to be repeated in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Munadi Akhtab. Just before that, I didn't introduce her. She has an economics and politics degree with a master's from Cardiff University, particularly focusing on British Muslim contributions. I know that she's doing a second master's in Islamic finance in Qatar and is on holiday right now. So thank you for taking the time out this evening to join us to read this statement. Just moving on with our program this evening. Really, what we want to do is next one. I know that we have Reverend Ellen Green here with us. If I could just ask you to come and join us on stage again. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to ask our next speaker, Nishad Yakupovich. Please excuse me if I mention any of these names wrong. How I survived the Omarska and Manjaca concentration camps. He was born on 30 April in 1965 in northwest Bosnia. He comes from a railway worker family. In 1985, he finished geological college and completed his national service for 1 year in Kosovo. On 14 May 1992, Nishad was captured in his village and deported to concentration camp in Omarska and Manjaca. He was freed on the 14 December 1992 and settled in the UK through an agreement with the Red Cross. Currently, Nishad is married with a daughter of a fellow concentration camp survivor, and he's a graduate of Kingston University in civil engineering. So, Nishad.
On the 24th of May 1992, it's in my village of Kevljani, it started shelling. The very first shell hit the minaret of the mosque. We all ran to the local stream and stay overnight, all night, and next day there was shelling all the time. And then there was proclaimed on the local radio that we have to surround it. When we went to the local school, we surrounded, they arrest us and separate. They took men and boys to 2 concentration camps. One is the Omarska, the other one is Karatem in Prijedor, while female children and elderly were taken to the school in Trnopolje. I ended up in Omarska, which is ex-mining complex, with my brothers, while my parents, sisters, and were transported to the school in Trnopolje. My 2 nephews and 3 nieces, all younger than 5, were in Trnopolje concentration camp. First 7 days in Omarska concentration camp, we didn't give him any food. And then later, we have one soup a day. At the beginning, it was good, but after a while, they deliberately keep it for 7 days on hot weather and then serve to us. And it was mix of leftover from their army, whatever is there. I entered concentration camp with 75 kilograms, which is about 11 stones. And after 2.5 months, I was half of my weight now, just 52 kilograms. And at very first night in Omarska, when they placed us in the mining company in the rooms, one of our guys, was questioning guard about why we are kept there, why they arrest us, and then he started shouting, and commander of the local police, ex-taxi driver, came in, and hit him with the rifle at the back of his head, and the man collapsed. They dragged him out, and we just heard a few shots. That was the first killing in Omarska, which followed by many, many more. And the taxi driver asked, anybody else have a question? The other day, one of the local imams was badly beaten and forced to eat pork, and then taken from room to room and forced to speak about it, saying that it's the best food he ever tried. On St. Peter's Day, which is by a local Serb, they have habit to make the fire from the wood around, but that 1992, instead of wood, they fired dumper tires, which was lots of them in the mining complex. And then they throw alive people on it, and it screamed. I never forget. Even 30 years after that, I still have a nightmare about that, and I still sweat in the bed. In Omarska, there were about 30 female prisoners. 2 of them were killed. All of them were systematically raped. But for me, fortunately, I wasn't in the part of complex that I can see them often. I didn't see how they suffer. I saw them just when they serve lunch for us. After Western media broke into Omarska, which was on ITV and ITN, I think, that was the light for us that we may survive. And then, same night, they took 120 people in the buses, and we learn later, 12 years after that, we find bodies of them in my auntie's Safia land in Musgrave. The rest of people next day were transported to Manjača and Trnopolje camps. About 150 stay in Omarska. The people that are looked healthier, they stay just for media, to Western media, to represent, if anything happen again, if they come, just to present them. I was, with my 3 brothers, sent to Manjača concentration camp, which is ex-military polygon, which Tito's regime was made because lots of fascists was at that area, and he made deliberately there, in the center of them. He made the polygon, but obviously they revamped in 1992. They placed us in the groups of 100 people in the bus. Bus is usually 45 seats, and they placed us, nobody can sit, everybody was on the floor, Just when you look from outside in the bus, you can see driver and guard. You cannot see prisoner. And that day, it was about 35 degrees Celsius temperature. They put heating on, they closed all windows. And I remember it was steaming like that, that on the ceiling of the bus started raining slowly, the water condensed. There was about 5 layers of people on the floor. I was the very bottom one, and at one stage I collapsed. And when I come back to life, I was on the top of them. My brother pulled me out. You know, and that's how I survived. The next person to me, he was died because of lack of oxygen. The transport supposed to be 3.5 hours, but it took 12 hours. They stopped in every Serbian village and offered the local to beat us up. 17 people were killed by beating. Not single bullet was shot. When we arrived on Manjača camp, we stayed until morning. In the morning it was Friday, and there was a road that is paved with crushed stones. And they made us to kneel and say, "You dirty Turks have to pray. It's Friday today." Today, after 30 years of torture, some ex-prisoners are ordered by Bosnian court to pay charges because they have a court case about torture, but they are not recognized as being tortured. And they have to pay, they fail, and they have to pay the money, about 2,000 to 3,000 euros. That's how Bosnia still is in denial. You get through this, and then you have to pay court, because the court of the Republika Srpska and then even Strasbourg say, yes, you are not victim, you have to pay the charges. And I don't know if you have picture. Yeah, I want to explain the picture. That's the first mine is identity card of the which I get of Manjača concentration camp, and a list of transfer from one another court. That's from the International Court in Hague. That's me with 2 brothers. I'm in the middle. The other 2 brothers with me in the Manjača concentration camp. And there was few other pictures, but yeah. This a random person from concentration camp. The second picture is my cousin Shaban. The bottom one that is beaten is my cousin Nejad. The other one is my cousin Hamdia. And in the same day, in 11th of June 1992, my auntie Bimlida lost her 9 grandsons in 15 minutes. But in the different village than mine. Thank you. If you have any question.
Yeah, we will take a couple of questions,
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you want to take, you can use that mic there as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for this, just to get everybody on board, so we will take a couple of questions for this round from Nishad. If there are any questions, yeah.
Saying here, at the time, you know, Europe allowed this to happen. This went from 92 to 95, and Europe didn't intervene until 95. They knew this was going on. So this was allowed to happen by the West. We need to mention this. And my concern is now the Republic Srpska, this...
if you can just use the mic
This
there.
president here, who's now ratcheting up the rhetoric and is going to start this again. You know, he's backed by the Russians. Who are the Bosnians backed by? Nobody. You know, you cannot rely on Europe to help you. You know that.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening now in Bosnia, because a half of Bosnia is Republika Srpska, which denied everything of it and stopped the progress of Bosnia. And everywhere, you know, they try to destroy or dissolve Bosnia, and nobody stand by us at all.
Anybody else? Yeah, inshallah. Can I just now ask the next person who's going to be Imam Saddin Sahman? He's going to be speaking about my story as a child fleeing bombardment from Serb and Croat forces. The Imam, he's an Imam and teacher at the Bosnian Islamic community, which is in London. And just to save time, I'm just going to reduce it to this for now. I think he can introduce further through his story, inshallah. Imam Saddin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu and good evening. It's not easy to talk after our brother Nisad. Seriously, I'll just try to do some bits and pieces very briefly, but it's so emotional. And it's the first time that I hear this story, even though that I know Nisad for minimum 10 years. But this is the first time, so he doesn't talk so much, and I see him so emotional. I never see him so emotional like this. I will start by saying thank you to all of you here this evening. Each and every one of you present here, sitting here, whether you're Bosnian or not. If you're Bosnian, it means you're a good Bosnian. If you're not Bosnian, that means you're a friend of Bosnia. You care about Bosnia, and you care about what happened in Bosnia 27 years ago. For that reason, I would like to say thank you for being here tonight, and Jazakumullahu khairan, and God bless you. I'm honored to be here tonight. I would like to thank East London Mosque and London Muslim Center, and someone who proved, even though he is not here tonight with us, who worked tirelessly to spread the truth about what happened in Bosnia. Our brother, our trustee, Abdullah Falik, who organizes events such as this one, not only this year, but for many years in the past, and inshallah ta'ala, I'm sure you will do in the future as well. Tonight, we are hearing many powerful stories and lessons. And each and every lesson and each and every story has got a message. It's very important to talk about genocide, but also it's not easy to talk about war and genocide. But that togetherness, courage, that we all work together, supporting each other in telling the truth, what happened in Srebrenica, But unfortunately, not only Srebrenica, there are all the cities and towns in Bosnia and Herzegovina where innocent people have been killed just because they were Muslims. Also, it's not only genocide that happened in Bosnia. Unfortunately, there have been many genocides in the past. But the difference between this genocide and previous ones is that now we can talk. Now we can tell the truth. Now we can educate our young generations. Before, we couldn't do that. Because of the system, we had to be silent. And that is why genocide would happen again and again and again. There was no generation that didn't remember at least one war during lifetime in Bosnia. Now we are different. Now we are not naive anymore. We cannot be naive anymore. We are not allowed to be naive anymore. We are not allowed Srebrenica to happen again. This is why I had extra reason or additional reasons to teach in Bosnian school, to spread the truth, to educate our children, not only about the war, but about the Bosnian language, about religion, about history, tradition, and many other positive things that my country has got. It's not because I'm Bosnian. I was there. I remember what happened at that time. I have different feelings. No, it would be my duty to do it as a person, as a human being, as an imam, whether that happened in Bosnia or any other country or place. Now we have Ukraine, we had Syria and many other places and countries suffering because of war. I would like just briefly and quickly mention my story. I was 10 years old child at that time. I would say not good age, because you're not baby that you don't know what is happening. But also you're not adult enough to know the reason, true reason why it's happening. But now I know why that happened. It's only because we had Muslim names and because we are Muslims. At the very beginning of the war, in April 1992, I had to leave my own town. Me, my younger brother, and our mom. Our mom was 7 months pregnant with our younger sister. We moved to neighboring town Jajce. My sister was born 2 months later in June. But we didn't have food, medicines, even milk for her, unless neighbors bring it to us. Shells were falling every single day. So you can imagine what kind of fear 10 years old child can have. That's one thing I will never forget. After less than a year staying in Jajce, we had to move to another town because the Serbs occupied Jajce. So we had to move toward more towards central Bosnia, in a town called Vitez. I had even worse time in Vitez. Croat army HVO attacked villages and town, killing innocent people. We stayed in the basement of one house. Many children, only children and women. Morning, 16th of April 1993, HVO Croats army attacked villages and other places. Same morning, Ahmici happened. I'm sure most of us heard about Ahmici. That's a village in Bosnia where in just few hours after Fajr, Azan for Fajr, they attacked all the villages and they killed 116 people in that place of Ahmici. They killed them, they burned them, and slaughtered. We've been waiting for anyone to come inside the house, as we didn't know what is happening outside. One soldier entered the house with wounds, hand full of blood, asking for help. It was our soldier. He told us to come out from the basement because if Croats army comes inside, they would kill all of us. At that moment, one woman lost her mind and started screaming and shouting, but we didn't know what to do. I finished Madrasa Islamic school in Bosnia, and I moved here in the UK. And my obligation and duty was to be part of Bosnian community, to teach our Bosnian children and young generations. In Srebrenica, only 8,000 to 10,000 people, men and boys, women, including children, were killed. Women and girls were raped. Husbands, fathers, and brothers were killed. It was the biggest crime in Europe after World War II and one of the most horrible in history. These crimes were ruled to constitute genocide by 2 international courts, as well as domestic courts. A few days ago, 11th of July 2022, we buried 50 victims in Potocari Memorial Center in Srebrenica. The youngest victim was 16. Our duty is to commemorate, to talk, to teach our future generations what happened. Meetings, gatherings, panels like this are of huge importance to pay respect to the victims, to preserve the memory, to support and rebuild our communities, to talk against hatred, injustice, and intolerance. Every one of us should do and should ask ourselves what we can do, what I can do. It's not because happened in Bosnia, now it's happening in other places. What is our human duty? Let us do together that never again really is never again. Thank you.
Again, we will take a couple of questions on this. While you are thinking of your question, just want to bring to your attention a couple of campaigns that the East London Mosque Trust and the London Muslim Centre has been involved in and successfully getting. That practically every year we've been sharing the Grand Mufti's Srebrenica sermon, sometimes Friday sermon, to English audiences in the UK and Europe. This is something that we've been entrusted to do by the Grand Mufti, and this week's address by the Grand Mufti is also available on the East London Mosque website as well as the social media. The other thing that the East London Mosque has been involved in is through working with the Grand Mufti, particularly Dr. Mustafa Çelik. Some of you will remember, who used to visit us in the 90s. We helped the European Parliament recognize the Srebrenica genocide, whereas before the European governments did not do so. And it's only after the recognition that you had UK and European governments actually send delegates to the Srebrenica genocide commemoration on Srebrenica. So these things are quite important for us to be involved in and do something, even if they are small steps to making some changes, inshallah. If there are any questions that we can take for the Imam who shared on his childhood experiences. Brother over there, if I could just ask you to take the mic, that's going to be given to you.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask a question where you mentioned about educating young people, and what is the situation with the commemoration of genocide in Srebrenica and also the historical events that took place in Bosnia? How is that commemorated and taught in schools across other countries in former Yugoslavia, like Macedonia, in Croatia, Slovenia, and so on, and also in areas like in Serbia, like Novi Pazar and places like that? Thank you.
So as I mentioned, like the education and studying the truth about genocide in Bosnia is very important. So I just made a comparison between the genocide that happened before. So we couldn't really, like, because of the communism system, so we couldn't do anything about that. And then I remember that even my grandparents and stuff, they've been saying that genocide was happening before, but they couldn't say anything because of the system. So I think you're right that now we should take advantage and do our best and maximum to educate. Unfortunately, as I said, in terms of political situation in ex-Yugoslavian countries, if I would say, not every country recognized, and many, like Serbia and Croatia, they don't even want to talk about the genocide. But I think one positive thing is that Montenegro recognized the genocide in Bosnia, which is positive forward. As I am aware, even Riasa, like Islamic community in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they have got so many programs. So even at that time, when I was in a high school, we had so many classes. So I'm sure even now, like we have got 6 madrasas or 7 madrasas in Bosnia. So each and every Islamic school, they do focus to share awareness what happened over there. I still think, I have to be honest, I think it still is not enough. Many schools they do, even government schools, they teach the kids. But I think in my opinion, is still not enough. Obviously, we have to be kind of precaution and stuff, how the age of the child, so up to what instance we can go and talk about this one. But I think the message is that to avoid happening again is our duty. Everyone who can spread the truth, what happened, is of huge importance.
If I could take from the lady here, yeah. Pass the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned that the only outward difference between the Serbs and the Bosnian Muslims was your Muslim name. Did any of your Serbian neighbours who you'd lived with and shared things with and gone to school, did they show compassion or try to help, or were they all hostile?
So the town where I was born, even before the war, the majority were Serbians. Now in my town, my village, alhamdulillah, is like they're all Muslims. But the town where I was born now is 99% of the Serbian people. So even when I go to my hometown, even now I don't feel that comfortable. Did they change? I don't think so. They changed, or maybe that's my opinion. I can say still I was a child at that time, so I don't know much how it was before. But because of what happened and the way I remember the war in Bosnia, and when I go to my town, I don't see I don't feel that comfortable still. Obviously, it's war, it's peace and everything. But for example, what catch my attention, like the neighboring town, the Aica, you can buy the newspaper, like which is in like Federation newspaper and stuff. But because my town is in Republika Srpska, which is only like 40 minutes from each other, those newspapers, you can't find them. So you feel you're in completely different country, but it's actually the same country. So they're pushing their own way, and I don't think that is kind of like understanding at the moment still, unfortunately.
Can I just say what's happened to me on the 24th of May? when we were arrested at school, I saw my school desk mate for 4 years. He was on the uniform of local militia, and he didn't show that he recognized me. That's how we felt. But just 7 days before that, we met in the town, and we have a drink. That's how people change in 7 days.
I think, gentleman here, you had a question.
Assalamu alaikum. As it came to know from you and also through our different sources, that this happened in April and May 1992. What I understand from Brother Nisat and the Imam said, it seems that that was the society of Sebes was not any in that country, no democratic institutions or human rights organizations or any organization which awareness of the situations that this great genocide went on and the whole world came to know after such a long time. It seems that there's no democratic organization or the press, media, as you said that, Brother Nisa, that you were saved by a report by ITN that went there. But was not there any sort of organizations that they could oppose these sort of things or bring these two things to the light of the people or the administration or the international organization? What do you think about that? Because it seems that there is nothing. They are just killing people, making genocides one after another, and all killings, rapings, etc., etc. And there was no opposition, nothing. Of course, their book, they brought to the justice at a later stage. But at that particular period, especially, what is the reaction that we want to know from your country's people?
Yeah, a long time after that, I was analyzed what's happening, how people change like that, why we, from the country that was quite stable, become unstable and killing each other, and where it's this hate come from, and then looking back, analyzing, I see it's not simply happening by one, is the system that was set up and slowly make people to do differently stuff. When war in Croatia broke down, plenty of the Serbs, they didn't jump to join the fight, but some of them went and they were allowed to loot in Croatia. And some of the people that are anyway criminals and stuff like that, they come very wealthy, and then the other people start joining because of that. Once you cross the line, you start killing the other people in Croatia, they just, seems to, and media, Serbian media was very systematic, to put the films, education, and how I can say, twist the truth and everything, to show the other people that Croat or Muslim doesn't matter, that they are bad. It's the system very good prepared. It's not just randomly happening. And we can see it, killing is very difficult to kill 7,000 men. You have to bury them, you have machinery, you have people, but now they still deny. But there's loads and lots of logistics to do that.
Thank you for that. Well, hatred, Islamophobia, dislike of the other can lead to genocide. And I think the next part would like to ask Reverend Alan Green to speak on Srebrenica is a warning for us all. And perhaps if I could ask Reverend Alan Green to reflect on the question that the brother asked, that actually it happened at our doorstep, and when you see what's happening with Ukraine and the way that we've galvanized our society, is it a case of we've just learned 27 years later? But one begs the question, after the Second World War, the concentration camps, and what the Nazis have done with the creation of the UN, you would have thought we've learnt our lessons 40 plus years on. Just a few questions for you to discuss, and I know Reverend Green, just for everyone's introduction, he is the chair of the Tower Hamlets Interfaith Forum and a parish priest at St. John's on Bethnal Green. He was the chair of the British Interfaith Delegation to Bosnia-Herzegovina in 2010, and that was led by our brother here, who's the organizer, who couldn't be here this evening, Dr. Abdullah Falik. And in 2010, Reverend Green was made a prebend of St. Paul's Cathedral in recognition of his interfaith work in Tower Hamlets. So, your reflections on this evening.
It is a sad privilege to be here this evening and to be in your company. Having heard your testimony, which was difficult to hear, it's certainly difficult to speak following you. There is so little that I think I can say that will make a difference, that will bring an end to what has happened, and to give you and your fellow countrymen and women justice. So I begin very empty of words. But I'm very pleased with the directions that you were giving at the end as well. It is down to all of us, even if we feel that we're incapable of bringing an end to what happened then and has not been acknowledged and has not been given justice since, that we are still, we must stand up. We must continue to talk about what happened in Srebrenica, and we must continue to ensure that we oppose such a direction anywhere in the world. When I went to Srebrenica in 2010, I had read, I had seen on the TV what had happened, but I was entirely unprepared for what I found. I thought what I was going to was a commemoration of an event in the past. And what I found there was an event that was happening directly that day in the present. That there were hundreds of burials taking place that day, of bodies that had been recovered, or at least sufficient parts of bodies had been recovered, that a family felt that it was time at least to have a burial. So it seemed that the war was right in my face. And I think for many of you, that has not changed, that continues. And what can I do about that? Well, the first thing I think, however small it is to continue to speak about it, is to continue to agitate for the authorities to continue to work to bring justice, both to those who suffered and to those who perpetrated that suffering. So it is about maintaining that conversation, maintaining these events that the East London Mosque has been so good at keeping before us. But the second is also ensuring that it does not happen again. And as we've heard, it isn't just one moment, a whole group of people turning against another. It happens incrementally. It happens by starting with words and then gradually of bringing division and building barriers between people so that they no longer see one another as neighbours, as you have described, as school friends, but as the other. And that can happen here. We have seen it in very small ways, the way in which the media in this country tries to portray, amongst others, Muslims, writing them off, writing you off. And we must not allow that to happen. Because we have seen that what comes out of that is then the far right come here in order to make their points, to close the mosques, to reclaim Tower Hamlets for the English. That's the sort of language that those idiots use, but we have to be awake. We have to stand together. We have to prevent those people dividing us, to ensure that Christians and Muslims and Jews and Hindus and people with no religion at all, that we see one another as human beings. We see our differences as a great positive. We see our different faiths not in fear, but as enriching each other. That I learn my Christianity from my Muslim friends as much as I learn it from my church. Here, I have been proud to say, when we have had those moments with Britain First outside this mosque, that this mosque is as much my mosque as it is those who come here to worship. It belongs to this community, and I'm proud of its history, and I'm proud of the history of Muslims in this borough. We must hold on to that sense of unity and not allow people to divide us. I have an awful feeling that now we once again have a Muslim mayor and a Muslim council, that will be used in very small ways by our press to begin to cast aspersions on this whole borough. And that will be used to try once again to suggest that Muslims are dangerous, that they undermine our society. Brothers and sisters, you do not undermine this borough or our society. There are those who do, and they are within all of our communities. And we must work to prevent them from doing that, but certainly not to allow them to become the symbol of any of our groups at all. We must speak up about Srebrenica, but we must also speak up about Tower Hamlets. We must defend the solidarity that we have here, and we must work to ensure that our understanding of one another grows and is not pushed into separate groupings that can undermine what we have here. And hopefully, in so doing, we can add something to your suffering in the past. And we can add something to preventing such things happening again in this world. Thank you.
When I visited Palestine back in 2002, many of us kept on asking, seeing their suffering, what can we do for you? When we return to our homes in UK, what is it that we can do for you? Shall we send you more charity? And when I visited Bosnia, Sarajevo, and I asked the same question, it seems like, although they're not both in the same circumstances, same situation, but people who have suffered, they've said one thing very clearly, which is, we don't want your charity. Of course, we have a way to support them through charities, but they said they need justice for their loved ones killed and the recognition of their plight and support. Wherever you go, you get this same message. It's not just a charity. We often think we've given our charity, we press that just giving, we've filled in the card details, our job is done. But actually, they need much more than that from us. And I just hope we don't just come to these memorials once a year, but support Bosnia. Can I just ask just a show of hand, how many of you have been to Bosnia? Okay, a few of us have. Those of us who haven't, it's a beautiful country. It really is. I'm not just saying this. I mean, I'm just waiting for my children to just be a couple of more years older, because when I visit even the memorial and the history. I want them to have a better understanding. I've got 2 young children, and I've been literally waiting for them to just be a couple of more years older, because I don't want them to just see the beauty of Bosnia, but I want them to understand the history. And I hope when we're thinking about next holiday, if every single one of us could just make that intention to visit the place, to find out more. And especially we've been talking, there's been this theme of teaching our young people. And it's a great interest to my heart as a teacher in a primary school that we want to keep this going and getting our children to understand and to know, because that's the only way we can make sure that they can then pass that message on. And this love for each other, this solidarity is what we build our societies on. We've got 4 minutes according to my time. If I know there was 1 or 2 people had questions. Did you have a question that you had? Somebody had a question? Yeah, I'll just take a couple if there is. If I could just take both in one go, and if any of the panelists could answer, that would be great.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Muhammad Raza Al-Karim. I am chaplain, St. Joseph's Hospice. My question is, how many Muslims living in the UK, Bosnian originally? And what we do ex-Imam Mufti Mustafa Shirk? We meet him before 27 years ago in here. What he do? Please.
Okay. So one is a piece of data and another one is a piece of news. If I could just ask you to ask your question, please. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is, what is the latest situation now? Muslim brothers and sisters, are they feeling freedom and in terms of practicing religion and activities?
Okay.
What is the situation, latest situation?
Okay.
My
Which one
name
of
is
you?
Abdul.
Seems more directed towards you both on those 2.
Okay, I think that I can just answer about the Mustafa Seric. Is it the? I'm glad that he was. I think even Abdullah Falak, he told me he was in this mosque and then he was there again. Obviously, he is still. I think I heard that he is advisor to the current Rais Ulamas, and definitely he is in very close ties with the current Rais. I think there is another organization that he is running at the moment, mainly by himself and then his team. So I think he's focusing more on that level. But definitely, he is in Islamic community, and I think one of the main advisors to the current Kabazovic race.
How many Bosnian Muslims do you have in UK? Do you have data
I think around 10,000, as I know. Yeah, 10,000 in it's kind of like small community, but together. Yeah, 10,000.
And what is the situation now?
Maybe Nisa can. I'm not that old to answer those. At the moment, you mean the situation, politically, or just in general, like in terms of the in general. As I said, for me, I mean, the most important thing is that the war has stopped. So that's killing innocent people, something like that, is most important. In all this kind of the stuff, one positiveness is that young generation, as I said, they are aware, they're more aware where we belong to because of the system that we had in communism. So I think we didn't worry so much about our religion and belongings. So now I can see so many young people that are going to mosque, they talk about what happened, and they are aware what happened. So that's kind of like very important, and one of the positive things that is gonna bring us a brighter future than it was before. Obviously, that politically, the most important that the country economy is not that bad, obviously, the stuff, but political situation is also it's not that bad.
We have run out of time. If you're able to just stay for a couple of minutes after, I've got a couple of people who've had their hands up. Maybe you can just approach them directly because I do need to finish on time. I've said to you, asked you how many people visited, and one of the things, and I'm not part of any tourist board for Bosnia. I would like to be, to support them as much as I can, but there are details there. There's a number there as well. There's an email address. If you have any queries about what's happening and how we can support further, please do email, as well as there's a number there to call. I think I'm going to leave this program, end this program, on a quote from Mustafa Serik. He used to say this in every event that he attended in the 90s, and I still remember it to this day. And he used to begin by saying that our situation is not as bad as our enemies would like to see, but not as good as our friends would like us to be in. And I think that's probably where we are with the situation of not only the Bosnian Muslims, but across when Le Pen in Paris or in France just nearly won the presidential election. There is something knocking on our door saying there's still work to be done when it comes to avoiding a future genocide. Thank you again for this evening, for attending and for your patience as we ran through a number of things this evening. Hopefully you go away with information, inspiration, and things for you to go and impart to our next generation. Wa akhi da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you.